Hey everybody, welcome to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And in this week's video, we are going to take a look and a listen to how parallel compression can really enhance your mix and bring your whole mix, make it come to life and give it that extra 10 or 15% to really polish off the sound of your mix, not to mention give you a little bit more depth and a little bit more punch. That's what we're going to take a look at today. Before we get to that, if you like what you see in this video, please hit that subscribe button below and hit the notification bell. Also, go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. I want to give you 5 free mixing training courses. It's my gift to you for just visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and also go out to mixingmadeeasy.net if you really want to learn the craft of mixing and join a like-minded community of people. We're all trying to get better at mixing music in our home studio. Mixingmadeeasy.net can be just for you. So now let's jump on into Studio One, and I want to give you a quick rundown of the layout of this particular song here. Okay, it's kind of a pop rock tune. Down here in brown, on the left-hand side, we have a drum kit. We have a bass here in blue. We have a bunch of guitars here in green. We have a organ and a piano here in this kind of olive color. Then we have a lead vocal here in yellow and a bunch of background vocals. Okay, now this song is fully mixed. This song is part of what I'm doing over at mixingmadeeasy.net. And in this particular month, we mixed everything with just stock plugins that come with our DAW, and in this case, Studio One. So you can do this with any set of plugins, stock plugins, third-party plugins, or a mixture of both. Keep that in mind. So all of our tracks are going down to our busing system here. We have a drum bus, bass bus, guitar bus, keyboard bus, lead vocal bus, and background vocal bus. And then we have some reverb here as well. Down here in purple is where all of our parallel compression tracks that we're going to focus on today are going to be. And we'll talk about that now. So we have here P drums, meaning for parallel drums, P bass, parallel bass, P guitars, P keys, P vocals, P background vocals. They're all here in purple. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these and mute these tracks. So all we're listening to in this section of music is we're just going to be listening to the final mix without any parallel compression. So here we go. So here's kind of our final mix without any parallel compression using only stock plugins that came with our DAW Studio One. So here we go.
Hits hard with the drums and guitars. The world explodes to the great divine. Now we're rolling down the road, you and me and the radio. Flowing down the mountain now there's no way we're going slow. We're a vector in space for perfection in stereo. Anywhere we go, it's you and me and the radio.
Okay, so a mix sounds pretty good on its own, not bad, but this type of music, pop rock, kind of rock track, we want to bring it a little bit more to life. And this is where we're going to employ parallel compression as our technique. So the first thing I'm going to do is, because now all these tracks are in purple, I'm going to play back that same piece of music and I'm just going to unmute and solo up the parallel tracks. And I'm going to tell you what to listen for. So you're going to listen to the song is not really going to get any louder. It's going to get a little bit more punchy, a little bit more clarity. Things are going to come to life a little bit more. So listen to the before and after. I'll mute and unmute these parallel tracks a couple of times. And then we'll walk through each one quickly and I'll show you the basic concept on how to do this. So here we go.
With the drums and guitars, the world explodes to the great divine. Now we're rolling down the road, you and me and the radio. Flowing down the mountain now there's no way we're going slow. We're a vector in space for perfection in stereo. Anywhere we go, it's you and me and the radio.
Okay, so what you should hear there again is the track may appear to get just a tiny bit louder, but it's not really a volume thing. It's a thickness thing. It's a punch thing. It's a more open, present kind of a thing. Okay, so that's what parallel compression can do when you compress all your different tracks. So let's just walk through a couple of these one at a time now that you got the basic before and after. So as I said, I have a regular busing system here: drums, bass, guitars, keyboards, lead vocals, background vocals. So what I do is I make those same exact buses for parallel tracks as we talked about: drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, lead vocal, background vocals in purple. So for every bus, I have a parallel track as well. Now, where you may see this most commonly used is on drums. That's where typically people will use this. So let's talk about drums for a second. So let's solo up our drum bus here, just so all we're going to be hearing is drums. Okay. And we have our regular processing going on our drums. And what you'll find is on the regular tracks, the individual drums here that we have, where we have a lot of our compression and EQ and such, we're doing very light compression on the individual tracks. And if you've taken any of my Mixing Made Easy series, you know that I typically will compress most times, there's always exceptions, to where we're only maybe compressing 2-3 dB or so, maybe 4 dB on an individual track. I'm doing what's called control compression, where I'm doing a light amount of compression on the individual tracks, not squashing anything to death, to retain the dynamics of the track. Then we use parallel compression to over compress that same track, and then we blend the two tracks together. So for example, down here in the drum section, you'll see that on our sends, we sent all of our drum tracks to the P drums for parallel drums. We do everything in pre-fader, so it's independent level-wise from the output fader. And I typically will set the fader level at 0 dB to get a nice healthy signal going to our parallel track, which is down here in purple. And on this track, I'm going to add a compressor. Now, this particular mix, again, I used only stock compressors that come with Studio One, but you can do this with any compressor. Where now I'm over compressing the drums. So if I mute our regular drum track and all we listen to is just the parallel track, here's what the parallel track sounds like. And you can see we're compressing almost 15 dB here. We're using cranking up the input, fast attack, fast release, 20-to-1 ratio. Now on its own, you say, well, that doesn't sound very good. Who would use that as a regular drum track? You wouldn't. But when you mute this and you just solo up our regular drums, and then I go ahead and let me just solo up these, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with it down and just kind of bring it in. So here's our regular drums on just with normal compression, our normal tracks. And now I'm going to bring up the parallel track. Okay, that's too much. I'm going to back it off a little. Okay, just enough to where I can hear it, then I'm going to back it off. That's before. Listen to the snare and kick. Okay, so it cuts through the mix more. Okay, so what the key is here, and again, this is all personal preference, how much parallel compression you want, but just by blending it together, you get the drums to cut a little bit more. Now, again, we're doing all this in solo, and we would normally do this in the context of the mix, but for this demonstration purpose, I wanted to show you this in solo. So that's the drums. Okay, same kind of concept for our bass guitar. If our bass guitar is, here's our bass. Here's our parallel bass. And on this track, I'm using another stock compressor that comes with Studio One. This is an LA2A kind of an emulation, the tube comp. Again, where I'm over compressing it, you'll see how much compression I'm doing on the parallel track. Again, we're cranking it. Okay, and then we're just kind of tucking it in underneath the bass track. This is with no parallel. Again, you can turn it up as loud as you want, but just to back it off a little. I don't want to make it too obvious. Before. After. So it just gets a little thicker. Now again, on an individual track, it's going to be subtle, and it's supposed to be subtle. The object is not to make everything just much louder. It's to listen to the tone and listen to the punch and the clarity. So now if I just bring in drums and bass, so we can just hear those two things together, we'll start with no parallel compression, just drum bass, and then we'll bring in those two parallel tracks, and let's listen to what it does. So it just gives it that little extra and across the entire mix. And if you do this for every grouping of instruments like guitars, keyboards, lead vocals, and background vocals, what you get is an accumulative effect of that, where again, it just makes the entire track give a little more punch, a little bit more girth. Now, one kind of insider tip I want to give you as well, and again, you can do this with any set of plugins. I'm going to keep saying that. You can do it with just your stock plugins where you can use the same exact compressor across all of your parallel tracks, as well as all your tracks during your mixing stage, if that's all you have. However, if you have third-party plugins, or if you're working inside of a DAW like Studio One or Pro Tools, where you have some of the analog style type emulations that are available to you, I recommend that you try to use different compressors on all your different parallel tracks. So on the drums, we have the FET comp, as I mentioned. On the bass, we're using the LA2A style. Okay, now again, on this particular mix, I only had the stock plugins to work with. So we use basically just the FET and the tube comp here. But if I was doing this with third-party plugins, and when I do this with third-party plugins, and you'll see that in some of my different mixing series that I have, I'll use several different types of compressors. And the reason for that is not so much for the compression piece of it, right? Because they all do the same thing. They're all compress. But really what it helps do is each one of these compressors have a different tonal aspect, a different EQ sonic footprint. And by having different compressors across your parallel tracks, it's like having different spices in the soup, which gives your mix a more unique sound and feel by blending it all together. Now, again, if you just have one compressor in all your plugins, you can use the same compressors, have the same concept where you're over compressing the parallel tracks, right? And then you're just tucking it underneath the regular buses. You'll get the same kind of thing where it's a little bit thicker, a little bit more clarity, a little bit more punch, but it won't be as exciting. It may not be as interesting sounding. It's always better if you have the access to these other plugins to kind of mix and match them. And again, there's no rules. You can use any compressor on any one of the parallel tracks. There's really no rules. What you'll find is if you have a bunch of different compressors over time, you might like the way certain compressors sound on different instruments, and you may have a set of go-tos. So for example, typically, again, this is a general rule, I'll usually use a 1176 style compressor on drums because that's the way I like the sound of my parallel drum bus. And same goes for the bass. A lot of times I'll reach for an LA2A style or a Fairchild style, a tube bass compressor, as opposed to a FET style compressor. On guitars, I might do something a little different from mix to mix. So you really have to experiment with it. But what it does is it allows you, again, to give that little extra punch and clarity. And by using different compressors, you get a different EQ sonic footprint. So it's really that simple. So once again, if I play all the tracks, all the parallel tracks together, and then take them all away, listen to the difference.
Hard with the drums and guitars, the world explodes to the great divine. Now we're rolling down the road, you and me and the radio. Flowing down the mountain as there's no way going slow. We're a vector in space for perfection in stereo. Anywhere we go.
Okay, so that is a way to add parallel compression to all the instruments, all the grouping of instruments across your mix, not just on drums, to where you can really give that little extra 10-15% to the mix to give it a little bit more punch, a little bit more power. Now, if you really want to dive down deep and you really want to get into all the training about different compressors and why I choose certain compressors over others in parallel compression, you want to go over to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and you want to check out the course, The Power of Parallel Compression. It's about a 60 or 70-minute webinar that I did in 2018 where we really dive down deep into this discussion and you get to see a lot more detail. So if you're interested in learning more about parallel compression, check out The Power of Parallel Compression. I will leave the link below in the description box. And as a special gift to you for just watching this video with me, I'm going to give you 20% off. There's also a coupon code in the description box as well. You can use the coupon code at checkout and get 20% off of The Power of Parallel Compression. So I hope you liked this video and you found it helpful. For more videos like these, please hit that subscribe button. Also go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Again, check out The Power of Parallel Compression. Check out the entire Made Easy series collection where there are literally dozens of videos now on mixing, training, and mastering and recording recording training so you can make better music in your home studio. And once again, also go out to mixingmadeeasy.net if you want to really get involved with a bunch of like-minded individuals who are all trying to get better at the craft of mixing music in their home studio. Check out mixingmadeeasy.net, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much and take care.